G'day, I'm Glenn, this is Belinda, Susie behind the camera. We are Brook and Ridge Farm, going to take you through a autumn garden tour.
Well, hi and welcome to what we call our kitchen garden, because it's right beside our house. It's actually not right beside the kitchen because the kitchen's on the other side of the house, but you know, you get the gist. It's right outside our front steps. So come on in. Your first thing you'll notice is that we have this electric fence around our garden, and that is purely to keep our dogs out. Yes, it's on the ground at the moment, but once they have been trained to it, we actually don't even have it hooked up to an energizer. So here's some sunflowers that we planted in February. They are just starting to head up now, looking pretty amazing. Really, we just grow these for aesthetics. They're just nice to look at. I have harvested some sunflower seeds from our last batch, but it's a bit of a battle between us and the king parrots. But yeah, some sunflower seeds. We've got a pumpkin that's finally decided to do its thing. So that has been in the ground since like December and just didn't want to grow until now. All the native bees are around the brahmi flowers too. Okay, so here this empty bed, this just had sort of some leftover silver beet and a few bits and pieces that are a bit straggly from summer, some beans and things, which were ripped out about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And last weekend actually planted onion seeds in here. So done a great deal of onion growing, done plenty of spring onions and stuff, but this year that is all onions. Over here, there's some snow peas coming up, still some eggplants. Our cosmos went a bit wild and we're just really enjoying those flowers, so they get to stay there. This bed is probably next on the hit list to have a bit of work done to it. It's just bits of odds and ends, but particularly some ginger in here, which I actually didn't realise there was any left in there, but it's come up and it's having a great time. Over here is some golden bantam corn, which is more or less finished. The rats and mice tend to get to it faster than what we do, but there are some beans growing through here as well. So I'm hoping to let this dry off and maybe the beans will do something, but if not, no big deal. Okay, so once we get over to this side, what's happening? Quite a lot going on in here. This was a corn crop as well until a few weeks ago, and about 2 weeks ago our garlic has gone in, so that's starting to come up. There's actually 2 different types of garlic planted in there, so they're starting to look okay. Over here we have just some greens basically, and I do actually believe in like mixed plantings of beds, but sometimes you're just busy and sometimes it's easier just to put something in rather than nothing. And so in this bed there are actually just seedlings that we bought at our local Mitre 10, just some lettuce and some spinach, which we eat like lots of leafy greens, so that's what they're destined for. Down here, this bed here just had actually a whole bunch of cardboard put in about 5-10 centimetres down, and that is because this bed is actually infested with a native little weed that gets into the soil and actually sends heaps of runners through the soil, and it sort of climbs through all your leafy greens and stuff. So it's a native, and obviously we don't use poisons and chemicals. It's not really a thing you can actually pull out to ever get rid of because it gets that thick. But anyway, we've sort of been finding if we suppress it periodically with some cardboard and plant into the top of it, we'll usually get a crop up through it that's edible, harvestable, and then we just sort of repeat the process. Oh, there we go, look, a bit of a dried out sort of looking one. We'll put the name up on the screen as well because it slips my mind at the moment. Yeah, poison pratia, that's it. Poison pratia. Okay, over here, this was cucumbers. Actually had a bit of a frame around here and had them tied up to the frame. It is resting. I'm probably going to be putting broad beans in there. Not that I've ever eaten broad beans before, but apparently it's a thing. Everybody seems to grow broad beans, so I thought I'd do a bed of broad beans this year and see how that goes. As we come down through here, we have on your left, the chili bush has been there for a few years. This is Brazilian spinach. It goes through patches of looking amazing and looking like crap. At the moment, it's looking pretty amazing. There has been a big cosmos in there, which I just got cut back yesterday. Walking onions, bit of salvia over there. We just like to throw flowers through the garden just for a bit of colour. Here, these 2 beds didn't have much going on other than getting a little bit overgrown. But in February, I actually planted beetroot seeds and these lettuce seedlings, and then we had nasty, like terribly hot weather, and so stuff just didn't do particularly well. It got annihilated really. But anyway, they're sort of still there. That's some more walking onions that we've spread around. The basil this year has been interesting. It's always getting this little like a powdery mildew or something onto the leaves. And this is the second planting in a different location that it's happened to. So I don't know. It's not like it's been wet, and I don't tend to routinely water the leaves overnight. So I don't know what's going on with that. This here, these little diggings are our little friendly frogs and toads that love jumping up into the beds to get some moisture because everything's so dry. You see another big well here where they've dug into the bed. They're a bit annoying, but I don't know. There's not much you can do about them. Here's a moringa. So this will probably be, may or may not be here by the end of the year because it got a bit of rot into its trunk last year, and so we cut it right off, and it's come back and it's looking pretty good really for a moringa. I've never really seen a moringa look much better. So that's moringa, some carrots over there. Here we have some ginger, eggplants, much to my camera person's delight. Look at them in there. Get very excited about.
I don't like eggplants.
And so again, they've been in since late last year, and they looked terrible for months because everything just kept eating them. And then all of a sudden, they've looked just looking amazing over the last 6 to 8 weeks. So they're staying. Around behind here, we have this bed is just coming out. Well, this bed here, sorry, was sunflowers, also overrun with that poison pratia, so it's going through the same process of layering down some cardboard, and then we'll top it up with compost. This here has had leeks, was a heap of marigolds, and that was some beans again planted in February that have just struggled because of the heat. I find the heat just knocks the flowers around, and so you don't get a good pod set. I think that's Lazy Housewife, I think that's the variety. And it's another bed that's basically sitting waiting for some action to happen. It does have a borage coming up in it, and so I will probably actually leave that because that will probably get really big and be a great nectary for some bees, and that's just a bit of time. And behind me is the passion fruit vine that is completely self-sown. Came up near our front steps 2 years ago, and it has produced kilograms and kilograms and kilograms and kilograms of passion fruit. It has been the most amazing plant ever. So that is like our favourite. It just loves growing along here along the front of the house. Okay, this is veggie patch number 2. This was our original veggie garden, and it got mothballed when things got really dry a few years ago. And the way things are looking, that may well happen to it again, because this is like just a traditional garden, raised garden beds, etc. And this big, beautiful tree here is a very thirsty tree. And so when there's not much water in the soil, all it does is send all its roots into all the garden beds, and you can water it in the morning and they're dry by the afternoon. But anyway, there's still a little bit happening over here, so let's have a look. Here we have a couple of not so magnificent looking blueberries. Little flowers I've planted there the other day. Sorrel looking a bit wilted in the sun, but it'll pick up once it gets the sun off its leaves a bit. Same with the beans. Actually, it's probably not the best time of day to be showing you through, but these are Belotti beans, so we'll grow them up and harvest them to be dried beans. We have a very late to start spaghetti squash, and this was from some saved seed that was a couple of years old, so not ideal. And out of all the seed, I think we got this one plant to finally come up, so I'm hoping to actually get some more seeds off this one if we can get some fruit off it before it gets frosted or whatever later in the year. A couple of more blueberries in here, and really not a lot going on. Again, we had plans to do more with these beds, but with the lack of water, that's probably not going to happen. There is garlic in here. Again, there's 2 varieties of garlic planted in here. I think this side though was, it's called Glen, which is like a variety suited to southeast Queensland, and I can't remember what that one was. This rather unattractive looking plant is our amaranth that looked amazing. Looking less amazing now, probably a little bit moisture stressed, and the local bugs have really enjoyed getting in there, and I think having a little chomp on the flowers. But we did have plans. We're hoping we're going to get some grain to grind and include in our bread, but yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure about that now. Choco vine, It has been living its best life for the last year or so with a decent amount of moisture. Had a load of chocos off that, and we just keep cutting it back. And more Belotti beans, and this was a Charles Dowding inspired no dig bed, and it went really well, and the beans were looking amazing, and then we got all the hot weather in February and all the flowers got affected, and so we've got almost bugger all beans, but there are a few. So again, these are for a dried bean, and so we will let these all, that one's like, these are pretty well dried off anyway, but I tend to let the plants die back, and then we'll actually harvest these out of there. They're actually a pretty bean. And we have a watermelon here. This was planted in December and did nothing for months, and now it seems to go, well, I'm coming into winter and I'm about to get frosted off, so I'll grow. So whether there is actually some fruit in amongst the long grass there, but we don't have grand hopes of.
There's a watermelon.
Yeah, I know, there's a little one here. We don't have grand hopes of getting anything out of that, but we shall see what happens. And that, my friends, is what's happening in the garden for autumn. Starting to happen, hasn't quite happened. Summer's a tough time in the garden. Things tend to get weedy, etc. And we both work full time, and so you do what you can do. It doesn't have to look like a picture book all the time. Hope you enjoyed the tour.